Well, Shalom Shalom Chavrim. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live, and hey, guess what? We are live today. And listen, there are quite a few things going on. One, Russia sending the Tu-160 nuclear-capable bombers to Syria. Two of those have been identified as to flying into the to the Syrian province there from Iran. I don't know if that's made mainstream media as of yet or not. There's been so much going on here. I haven't had a chance to follow up on everything. But we're also going to be talking about locusts in Africa eating up entire crops. So many things going on. You got the coronavirus out there. And one other thing, too, I'd like to mention to you, just so that you guys are aware of this as well. If you go to True News, Rick Wiles there on True News, we ended up appearing on the show with Rick Wiles and the crew there on this program right here. It's actually, if you go to True News on YouTube there, you'll see it right there, Christianity versus Evangelical Zionism with Stephen and Yana Ben-Nun. We had reached out to Rick Wiles and his staff there and had been discussing wanting to be able to come speak with them about the situation of this growing threat on Christianity. It is a threat towards Christianity. We're talking about the Noahide laws. We're talking about all these type of things that are happening. It's not that we are against our Jewish friends over in Israel or any other part of the world. Our desire is to see them come to the knowledge of Jesus Christ as Savior. But there's very few people out there that are willing to actually take that stand. And so Rick, while we were there, of course we didn't know exactly what our thoughts were. I'm sure Rick had questions as well that they wanted to ask us, but we had realized that there is very few people. You have Chuck Baldwin, you have Rick Wiles, you have Adam Green. There's quite a few others out there as well exposing these Noahide laws and how dangerous they are for Christians around the globe. And although they may seem as a symbolic law, they are definitely gaining some traction and laws are continually being passed. Well, Rick, after meeting with him, had invited my wife and myself on with him. We accepted the invitation there, and we actually did that. As you can see, well, don't know if it's appearing on your screen yet or not, but anyway.
He was a Zion?
There we go, right there. So we did come on with Rick, and really it was a very nice time meeting the team there at True News. So I'll put a link to this in the description below after we actually air this broadcast. So I wanted to bring that to your attention there. It has quite a few views thus far, 43,000. So definitely, if you like the interview, you like the video, give it a thumbs up. And again, as we even said, and I said it on the broadcast, not all Jewish people are in the knowledge or in the desiring of wanting to do harms to Christians to begin with. It is an elite group that is pushing for these Noahide laws around the globe there. But Rick invited us on the program there. It was kind of unexpected on our part there. So we came on and we spoke about this topic, a little bit about our background, things like that. And I think it was very productive and just a real when you get a chance to meet them, you realize that these are people that really love the Lord Jesus, and their desire is for the gospel of Jesus Christ there. Then also we have another thing that just came up as well. Abby Martin is suing Georgia over Israeli loyalty oath law. Something that in order for her to be able to speak at a university that she was scheduled to speak on journalism, wasn't even going to be speaking about Israel. We know that Abby Martin, of course, is a very strong advocate when it comes to, I don't know why things are not changing on the screen here.
Political boycott.
There we go. This is the attorney for Abby Martin that is actually suing the state of Georgia for violation of freedom of speech on college campuses. I'm going to play a couple of clips here in just a moment for you here, and we'll be going into a few other things there. So anyway, let me go back to our lead story though. We spoke about Russia moving the Tu-160 bombers. These are brand new, state-of-the-art bombers that Russia, after just testing these bombers, has now deployed them to the theater there in Syria. This, of course, is after Turkey has already warned it will take action over Idlib flare-up if diplomacy fails. This came in just the other day. In fact, actually it came in today on RT News there. Ankara seeks a diplomatic resolution to an uptick in fighting in Idlib, Syria. Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu has said, but it is prepared to take other steps if talks with Russia fall through. Now keep in mind, I don't think that the Turkish government has any desire for doing any kind of talks with Russia on the situation in Syria. We have already shared with you guys earlier in the week there where they have been moving tons and tons of tanks and armored vehicles there inside of Syria. This is a Syrian government helicopter that was shot down by the Turkish forces there. A picture of that there on your screen. And of course, the Syrians had bombed out 10 of the armored vehicles of the Turkish military. Both sides have been killing each other's soldiers. So it is definitely heating up there. And I am sure that Israel and the United States president would love to see this turn into a major brawl with Russia. I do believe, this is just a personal opinionated note, that Putin is working with Israel. So there may be full knowledge on both sides there that they're going to get into this conflict. It'll draw Iran into the battle. It'll cause Iran to get struck. Iran will then strike Israel with some sort of very heavy bomb, possibly even a nuclear strike. And then this will go into spiraling completely out of control. We have not yet loaded that part 2. We did part 1 on Patreon, our message there at the conference here in Orlando, but part 2 is far more in depth, and it deals with nuclear war that we know that will be breaking here in the not so distant future. Not an all-out nuclear war, but a limited nuclear war. But anyway, there were reports like the one here on Twitter. This is from Lusa Kupernika, who said nuclear army Russian Tu-160 bombers arrived in the Hamim in Syria to confront Turkey and U.S. by Nahid al-Husani on February 14th. That was yesterday, 2020. Sources inside Syria just watched Russia's most advanced bomber deploy to the Syrian possibly army with nuclear-tipped hypersonic missiles. And the reason why they're saying hypersonic missiles is because of this Russian article right here, saying that that the Russian government was going to arm these planes with hypersonic missiles. This is from iz.ru. If you want to check it out, you'd have to use Google Translate unless you speak Russian to be able to translate that there. But that's what the anticipation is there. At any rate, though, if you remember, President Trump had signed the executive order targeting anti-Semitism on college campuses. The order would expand the federal government's definition of anti-Semitism. Notice that is such a provocative statement that goes so much people are just not seeing that. All right, right there it is. The president wants to expand the federal government's definition of anti-Semitism. Okay? President Trump signed an executive order to combat anti-Semitism on college campuses. The order signed Wednesday would expand the federal government's definition of anti-Semitism. All right? In other words, it's not just hatred towards Jews. All right? I mean, I would even support anti-Semitism bill if it's just hatred towards Jews. But, we already have existing laws that cover that. This is nothing about that. This is so that you don't speak anything. You're not for BDS. You can't speak that Israel is wrong for the mistreatment of Palestinians. You cannot speak against the abortion laws of Israel. You cannot say that the Rothschilds were the ones that handed over the country to another elite member in order to create the state of Israel. You cannot speak about the Zionist movement involved in allowing 800,000 Hungarian Jews to go to their deaths in the Holocaust. Many of these things that are crimes against even Jewish people, perpetrated by the Jewish people, it would be a crime labeled under anti-Semitism. You can't even say that the Mossad was like the dancing Israelis were out there and that they may have had something to do with the downing of the Twin Towers of 9/11. You would not be able to speak against Netanyahu that he said that the downing of the Twin Towers was a good thing for Israel or the war on terror. Wow. This has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. It's just pointing out facts and the truth. All right, so anyway, Abby Martin, who is a very strong supporter of Palestinian rights, her attorney here, speaking here, I'm going to play a couple of clips in this. This is where the attorney speaks about the lawsuit that's being brought against the state of Georgia for violation of freedom of speech. Listen to this.
Boycotts. 4 years ago, Governor Nathan Deal signs into law SB 327. This bill required that anyone who wants to contract with the state of Georgia for services worth more than $1,000 sign an oath pledging that they will not boycott the Israeli government. That oath applies whether you are a substitute teacher who wants to work for our public school system, whether you are a construction.
Okay, the video stopped on its own. It may start again here in just a second. But this is exactly what Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney was fighting in Congress, because Congress used to require that all congressional members sign oaths of their pledge and loyalty to Israel when becoming Congresspeople of the United States, representatives of the United States. And Georgia, 4 years ago, passed a law in the state of Georgia that you cannot do any contractual work in the state of Georgia unless you sign an agreement that you will not speak anything against Israel. You will not support BDS. I mean, these things should be a matter of conscience of an individual. You know, I'm really myself not in support of boycotts in the first place. I don't support the boycott of Syria. I don't support the boycott of Israel. I don't support the boycott of Iran. Other than weapons, maybe, I would probably support something like that. But many times these boycotts, they take away medical supplies that are needed by these countries. They take away food supplies, all kinds of things like that. But nonetheless, it should be the right of an individual whether or not they have the freedom of speech to be able to stand for one of these things or not. But in the case of the state of Georgia, like it was with the United States Congress until Cynthia McKinney took this battle head on, which they never did away with it, they only revised the way it is. Now Congress members have to sign or write a page declaring their loyalty to the state of Israel. I mean, that just seems kind of awkward for the United States. And I'm not against somebody that wants to declare their support for Israel. If you stand with Israel, you want to declare your support for Israel, I think that a person has every right to do so. But to require that you cannot do business, like in this case here with the state of Georgia, unless, or you can't do this business unless you sign this document of your support of Israel, that's mark of the beast type of terminology. That is, you can't buy or sell, saving you take the mark. Saving you declare your loyalty to a foreign government. All right? I mean, I love my people, but I guarantee you one thing, my people and a beast system are two different things. All right? And nobody's paying attention to that. Oh, there are just so many people that love Israel, and I appreciate the people that love Israel, that love the Jewish people. But listen to me, you're not doing my people a bit of good if you're not taking the gospel of Jesus Christ to them. If you're just taking, and your pastor's taking you back under Talmudic beliefs and Zohar prophecies, and this is what you're building your plumb line on, you're going to find yourself in hell with the rest of them. And how many Jewish souls will be lost because you did not share the gospel of Jesus Christ with them in the first place? And yet you know that there's coming an antichrist system, a beast system, as the Bible says. Remember, the serpent is a beast. He was the most subtle of all the beasts, right? The serpent was a beast. And Jesus said that the Pharisees were a generation of vipers and serpents. That doesn't mean every single Pharisee was. We know Paul was not. We know Nicodemus was not. And no doubt many other, because when Nicodemus came, he said, the Pharisees were saying, we know that thou art teacher come from God, because no man could do these things except God be with him. So no doubt many Pharisees ended up believing, but not all of them. We know that because we have a lot of Pharisees today. And not all of the Pharisees today are like that either. There's many of them that would come out if you would witness the gospel of Jesus Christ to them instead of being chicken. I mean, I cannot believe the Christians that have no gumption to be able to share the gospel of Christ with my Jewish brothers and sisters. Or friends, I should say. They've not become brothers and sisters as of yet. Right? My kindred, I could say. But listen. All right, let me take you a little further into this here. The attorney, let's play a little bit more what he says here.
Worker who wants to build something for our state, or whether you are a journalist who wants to speak at a state university. If you want to do so, and your contract is worth $1,000 or more, that law says you have to sign an oath pledging that you do not and will not boycott the Israeli government. This law was nearly identical to laws passed in over 20 other states. All of these laws are designed to punish people who participate in the boycott of the Israeli government over its human rights abuses against the Palestinian people, and also to coerce others into not joining the boycott. Now, even though this law passed in Georgia back in 2016.
Okay, so as you can see, 20 other states have also passed the laws like this. Okay, now Abby Martin, she takes to the stand herself, and I want to play a little clip of what she says as well. I think this is where we start at.
Advocates for the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement. Through its political, military, and economic support, the U.S. is supporting egregious human rights violations of several UN resolutions, the Geneva Conventions, and more. All of this is not up for debate. The BDS movement exists to mount pressure against Israel to stop these atrocities, similar to the grassroots movement that brought the end of apartheid in South Africa. But advocating for Palestine or criticizing Israel was not the topic of my speech at Georgia Southern. I was scheduled to give a talk as a journalist about media and media literacy. For this, I was being asked to contractually pledge loyalty to a foreign country. How could I comply with this request? Was I supposed to delete and destroy all the copies of my film that I had just released because it advocates BDS? Was I supposed to remove all video reports on my company's websites of all the interviews I have done about my reports on countless news outlets because they advocate BDS? Of course.
All right, so you can see where this is going. You know, I mean, listen, I don't know why people don't recognize that, why people don't realize that this is an Antichrist type of system. It is a replacement theology, in fact. Israel is trying to replace Christianity with Talmudic beliefs, and that if Americans, which they say this nation is founded on Christianity, well, I really question just how much, maybe founded, yes, but surely isn't that way now. But nonetheless, we are a diverse nation as well. We do support freedom of religion in this nation. And freedom of religion should also represent, as our First Amendment right is, freedom of speech as well. Our nation does not normally discriminate against religious beliefs or views. In fact, it's been a safe haven for people that are persecuted for whatever their beliefs they might have. But now we've turned the tide on that. Now the United States is now wholeheartedly not a separation of church. Well, maybe that's the problem. The Constitution said that we had to have separation of church and state. It didn't say we had to have separation of synagogue and state. But the United States and individual states are becoming synagogue states. You know, Jesus said that they would persecute you in their synagogues. He didn't say anything about persecute you in their church. He said they're going to persecute you in their synagogues. You know, listen, I support completely for the Jewish people, the Israelite people, to be able to worship God the way they choose in their synagogues and for them to have freedom of speech. But when it comes to the state itself, we have no business putting one religion or another, a foreign government no less, above that of the United States of America, and causing people to violate their freedom of speech. President Trump was just at this rally, a Right to Life rally, saying that he was supporting the First Amendment rights of these Christians to be able to speak publicly in these universities about pro-life. Well, that's pretty nice, Mr. President, but the problem is when it came to speaking against Israel, though, nope, you can't have that right. That's taken away. And the president, okay, the president himself, as I said to you, see, they're suing individual states for this problem, right? But the president of the United States signed the executive order back here, December 11, 2019, that bans all this, or broadens the anti-definition, or the definition of anti-Semitism across all public schools and universities across the nation. This is where people like Miko Peled, Israelis, I'm talking, do you realize that most of the people that speak against the crimes that the Israeli government does against the Palestinians are Israelis? Former IDF soldiers or former victims of suicide bombers? You know why it's them? Because Christians don't have the courage to tell the truth. You go to Israel, you see the crimes, and I know ministers right now that listen to this broadcast that know crimes that the Israeli government has done to other Israelis that are married, that because their wives are not Jewish, throw their wives out of the country, nearly beat them and everything else and do all kinds of inhumanitarian things, but they won't dare have the courage to stand for those people. You know the atrocities that go on. And I'm not condoning the violence that Palestinians do to Israelis. No, I don't. I don't condone either side of this equation. But when are we going to stand for truth? Why do we want to be hypocritical? Oh, it's only the Palestinians that are bad. Do you know Miko Peled, his sister, is a professor at the University of Jerusalem, and she's also an advocate for the Palestinians. His own sister was killed by a Palestinian suicide bomber. You know what his mother said when that happened? She said, they asked her, they said, now you realize how bad the Palestinians are. She said, no, now I know that my government that has oppressed these people have caused the death of my daughter. You know, why don't you listen to the voices of the Israelis that tell you the truth? The Israelis that actually care about a Palestinian Christian. And they don't have to be a Christian. It may be Muslim, but you know what? You'll never win a Muslim to the Lord if you really think you're going to win them to the Lord by oppressing and supporting their torture and abuse and little children being thrown into prison at the age of 10 years old and serving 10 years sentence for throwing a rock at a car. You know, I realize there's been accidents that have been very close to causing life and stuff from huge stones that have hit cars of settlers and things like that. You know, I understand both sides of the equation on this. You have to remember, I went through a suicide bombing. I know what it's like on both sides of this fence. I lived in Israel during the Intifada. But the Intifada actually caused me to wonder, what are these people going through that are driving them to this particular point? I don't support the violence either way. I don't support the wars either way. I don't support the fact of us arming terrorists over in Syria, whether it be the United States or Israel, that beheaded the Christians and really targeted them. And just like the situation right now currently, yeah, Russia moves the Tu-160 over there. These guys, all these elites are in cooperation in the background, and they're going to eventually attack our country here as well. And when they do, they're going to use it to be able to round up the American people after we spend out our bullets on each other over people that are starving to death. Then they're going to take and round the people up, put you in FEMA camps, divide you up, and then they're going to genocide you based on racial purity. I know that's hard to believe, but these are the things that I've been told that is going to happen in this nation. By the way, just in case you're curious here, there is a new article on RT that Mr. Bloomberg, Michael Bloomberg, is going to have Hillary Clinton as his running mate, vice president running mate there. That might surge him ahead. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? That'll be interesting, won't it? No matter which way we go, the end is not going to look good. I have noticed that no matter who the candidate is in the Democratic side, if Trump loses, they're going to have somebody in there that's going to continue this madness that we're doing in this nation. Like I've always said, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican. They're just as corrupt on both sides. And I've had national known politicians tell me that as well. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. Don't forget, support the broadcast. We do need your help. It takes a lot to keep this going. And we are working on setting up an office here in Orlando to where hopefully we'll be able to have little meetings with people here locally as well and start a weekly teaching ministry for you guys. We may be bi-weekly in the beginning as far as meeting like that, but we are making steps towards that. So we need your help in doing so. Also, President Trump is vowing to send Border Patrol agents to this what they define as sanctuary cities. As Trump administration escalates its immigration policies. I kind of find that interesting that this is all happening during an election year. So who knows? You know, and listen, there's a lot of things that President Trump has done good. I'm not here to beat up Trump on all these issues. My biggest issue with the President of the United States right now is putting Israel above the United States. All right? I believe in supporting Israel where there is a genuine need, but not in making it become like an apartheid state that just demoralizes your Christian brothers and sisters that are Palestinians, not to mention the Arabic friends that we have there as well. There's got to become, I mean, look, Israel could be like the United States. It could be a democracy. The reason why they don't want Israel to be a democracy is because, well, just like they did with the abortion laws. They made the abortion laws all the way to the 9th trimester, and it was all about suppressing other races of people, using abortion to eliminate the threats of people that were not Ashkenazi. What a shame. I'm Steve Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. You'll get the truth here. May not always be pleasant, but you will get the truth here. If you want to stand for the truth like that, please, we need your help. IsraeliNewsLive.org is our address or our website. And when you go to Israeli News Live, you can also, you'll see our mailing address, which I can blow this up so you'll see that on your screen as well. Whoop, a little bit too fast there. And by the way, all of our videos do appear. I made that actually. All of our new videos are always popping up on pop up on Israeli News Live. We do have a friend of ours that is working building our website that will allow us to run live on there. That's Brother Bill. And Brother Bill, if you're listening, my brother, I have not forgotten. I'm supposed to load up some more videos there. He is getting the apps that you guys may have downloaded on the Apple Store as well as your Android device. I've got to remember to be uploading these videos so that you can also watch this from your apps on your phone. As Israeli News Live on the App Store for Apple phones or as well as Androids. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. Good evening.